Welcome to Conversion Bible. This deep dive is powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you run smart discount campaigns on your store. You can test it for free right now on the Shopify App Store.
It's great to be diving into this topic.
Definitely. You know how you land on some Shopify stores and boom, you just feel like buying something? While others, well, they just leave you cold.
Absolutely. Happens all the time. And today we're going beyond just, pretty designs. We're getting into the actual brain science behind why that happens.
Yeah, we want to understand how your customers' brains are really making those purchase decisions. If you've ever wondered why some stores just click with people and others, well, don't. This is for you.
Exactly. We're exploring neuromarketing. It's this really interesting mix of brain science, psychology, and marketing strategy. It can give you a serious edge online.
So our mission today is pretty clear. Figure out how understanding the brain can help you build Shopify stores that, frankly, convert better, get those rates up.
And the potential is huge. Think about the statistic. It's pretty wild. Apparently, something like 95% of our buying decisions actually happen subconsciously.
95%. That's enormous. It means there's this huge gap between what people say they want or what influences them and what's actually driving that click on the buy button.
And that's where neuromarketing really shines. It tries to bridge that gap instead of just asking people, which, let's be honest, isn't always reliable.
Right, because they might not even know themselves.
Exactly. Neuromarketing looks at the brain's actual response and the results. Well, stores using these principles have seen conversion lifts of like 15% to 30%. That's not small change.
Not at all. And it starts the second someone lands on your site, right?
I read somewhere that visitors decide whether to stick around or leave in just 2.6 seconds.
Yeah, it's incredibly fast. 2.6 seconds. It barely gives you time to register what you're seeing, consciously anyway.
Which tells you just how powerful that first impression is. It's all happening subconsciously, driven by these rapid brain processes. Precisely. And that's the core idea, observing the neurological activity to get a truer picture than just asking people what they think.
Okay, so let's get into the basics of this. Neuromarketing isn't magic, it's science. It combines neuroscience, studying the brain, with psychology, and then applies it to marketing.
Right. And the key thing to grasp is that conscious thought is just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath, the subconscious is soaking up information, making connections, deciding things without us even realizing it.
And when someone's browsing, say, your Shopify store, there are basically two brain systems at play.
That's a good way to put it. You've got the emotional brain, quick, intuitive, running on visuals, feelings, past experiences. It's automatic.
The gut feeling part.
Exactly. And then there's the rational brain. That one's slower, more analytical. It looks at the details, weighs things up, and kind of justifies the decisions.
So the emotional brain usually decides first.
Typically, yes. It makes that initial, often very quick judgment. Then the rational brain kicks in afterwards to find the logical reasons why it was a good decision.
Which explains why sometimes you buy something on impulse and later have to kind of construct the reason why you needed it.
Precisely. You're providing the rationalization, not necessarily the root emotional cause. It also ties into something called the somatic marker theory.
Somatic markers, what's the idea there?
Well, the theory suggests that our past emotional experiences create these sort of physical tags or markers in our bodies. These markers get linked subconsciously to those experiences.
Okay.
So when you face a similar situation later, like landing on a new website, your brain quickly checks those markers. It gives you an instant gut feeling, positive or negative, based on past related experiences. Ever visited a site and just felt off?
Yeah, definitely. Even if you can't quite say why.
That could be a somatic marker firing, maybe triggered by a design element that subconsciously reminds you of a bad experience you had somewhere else.
And this all loops back to that 2.6-second window again. That snap judgment is the emotional brain using these somatic markers.
Exactly. It's a rapid assessment based on past feelings and visual cues.
So how do researchers actually see this stuff happening in the brain? It sounds pretty high-tech.
It is, yeah. There are several techniques. You probably won't be hooking your customers up to machines, but understanding the methods helps grasp why the principles work.
Right, like fMRI.
Yeah, functional magnetic resonance imaging. That shows which parts of the brain light up, basically which areas become active when someone looks at a product or clicks add to cart. It's like a brain activity map.
And EEG, that's one of the electrodes on the head.
Correct. Electroencephalography. It measures electrical brain waves in real time. Good for seeing things like engagement, excitement, or focus levels while someone is browsing.
Then there's eye tracking, which seems pretty straightforward. It just follows where people look.
Essentially, yes. It maps out visual attention, what grabs the eye, what gets ignored. You get those heat maps showing the hot spots on a page. Often follows an F or Z pattern, which is useful.
Okay. What else?
There's also GSR, galvanic skin response, measures tiny changes in sweating on the skin, which indicates emotional arousal, excitement, stress, that kind of thing. And facial coding analyzes micro expressions, those really quick facial movements that reveal underlying emotions.
Wow. So these tools can uncover things people wouldn't or maybe couldn't tell you in a survey.
Absolutely. For instance, an EEG study looked at pricing. It found brains reacted more positively to a simple all-in price compared to seeing a base price than adding shipping and tax separately.
Ah, the hidden costs annoyance.
Exactly. It suggests simpler pricing feels better subconsciously, even if the total amount is the same, reduces cognitive friction.
That's a really practical takeaway. Even without an EEG machine, you can apply that, simplify your pricing presentation.
Precisely. And this leads perfectly into the visual side of things. How the brain processes what it sees is hugely important for Shopify stores.
Right. Visuals aren't just decoration. They talk directly to the brain, often bypassing conscious thought. Let's talk color.
Color is incredibly powerful. Different colors trigger different responses. Blue, for instance, often builds trust. Think banks, insurance companies.
Makes sense.
fMRI studies show blue can activate parts of the prefrontal cortex linked to trust, especially in unfamiliar online settings. Red, on the other hand, creates urgency, excitement, great for sales, limited offers.
And green, usually for health or eco-friendly stuff.
Generally, yes, associated with growth, nature, health. Black often signals luxury, exclusivity. So the colors you choose aren't arbitrary. They should align with your brand message and desired response.
I've heard of a 60-30-10 rule for color palettes. Is that based on this?
It is, yeah. It's about visual harmony. The brain finds palettes with a dominant color, 60%, a secondary, 30%, and an accent, 10%, easier to process and more visually appealing. It creates balance.
Okay. And beyond color, how you arrange things matters too, right? Visual hierarchy.
Crucial. It's about guiding the eye. Remember those F and Z scanning patterns from eye tracking? You need to place your most important stuff, your value proposition, your add to cart button along those natural paths. Work with how the brain stands, not against it.
Makes sense. What about fonts? Typography.
Also important. Clean, simple sans serif fonts are generally easier for the brain to process for body text.
Right.
Reduces cognitive load. But you can use a more stylized display font for headlines to evoke a specific emotion or brand feel, maybe traditional with a serif font, or modern with a clean sans serif.
And white space, just empty space.
Not just empty, it's breathing room for the brain. Good use of white space can actually increase comprehension by up to 20%. It stops things feeling cluttered and overwhelming.
Good point. And images. We talked about processing speed, but what kind of images work best?
Well, images with people making eye contact can create a stronger connection. But if you want to draw attention to the product itself, an image where someone is looking at the product works. Wonders our eyes naturally follow their gaze.
So visual design is really about neuroscience, not just aesthetics. It's about making it easy and appealing for the brain. Let's shift to the overall user experience, the UX.
Right. The goal with UX from a brain perspective is really to minimize cognitive load. That's the mental effort needed to use your site.
Because the brain wants to conserve energy, right?
Yeah.
It's lazy by default.
Essentially, yes. So make it easy. Intuitive navigation is key. Put things where people expect them. Logo top left, cart top right. Don't make them hunt.
What else reduces that load?
Progressive disclosure. Don't dump everything on the visitor at once. Reveal information gradually, as needed. And consistency is huge. Use the same design patterns throughout the site so the brain doesn't have to keep relearning how things work.
I've also heard about decision fatigue. Is offering too much choice actually bad?
It absolutely can be. Bombarding people with endless options can overwhelm them. They get mentally tired and might just give up and leave without choosing anything.
So the paradox of choice. Less is more, sometimes.
Often, yes. Research by Barry Schwartz and others suggests a sweet spot. For many categories, maybe 3 to 7 well-presented options is better than 30. If you have a lot of products, you need really good filtering and categorization to make the choice manageable.
Makes sense. What about trust signals? Security badges, reviews, return policies. Do they work on a brain level?
Definitely. fMRI shows these things activate trust centers and reduce anxiety. Seeing a security badge or good reviews makes the brain feel safer about the transaction. Clear policies remove uncertainty, which the brain dislikes.
And mobile. Does the brain handle smaller screens differently?
It seems to. Attention is even more scarce on mobile. People are often multitasking, more distracted, so your mobile design needs to be hyper-focused. Ruthlessly prioritize. Cut anything non-essential. Make buttons large and easy to tap.
Okay, so a brain-friendly UX is smooth, intuitive, trustworthy, and doesn't make you think too hard. Let's zoom in on the product page itself. This is where the conversion really happens, right?
Absolutely. It's the make or break point. Everything we've discussed applies here, but with even higher stakes. Let's start with product descriptions.
Right. Features versus benefits. You often hear, sell the sizzle, not the steak. Is that neuroscientifically sound?
Very much so. The brain responds more strongly to benefits, how the product improves the customer's life, than to a dry list of specs. Instead of 10 megapixel sensor, say, capture crystal clear memories you'll cherish forever. Connect emotionally.
But don't ramble on too long.
Exactly. There seems to be an optimal length, maybe around 300, 400 words for many products. Enough detail, but concise enough to avoid overload. Test what works for your audience, of course.
And images again. They're even more critical here.
Hugely critical. Remember, visuals are processed super fast. Eye tracking shows people spend way more time looking at images than reading text on product pages, maybe 65% more time on images.
Wow. So high-quality photos, multiple angles, maybe lifestyle shots showing the product in use.
All essential. Let people really see what they're buying. It reduces uncertainty and increases desire.
Okay, let's talk price. How you frame the price matters, doesn't it?
Massively. Charm pricing ending in 0.99 works because the brain reads left to right and anchors on that first digit, making $9.99 feel significantly cheaper than $10 subconsciously.
Even though we consciously know it's only a cent difference.
Right. Anchoring is another one, showing the original price crossed out next to the sale price. It makes the discount seem larger because the brain uses the original price as a reference point. Bundle pricing can also work by making the overall deal feel simpler and reducing the perceived pain of paying for individual items.
In social proof reviews, ratings, testimonials, why is that so powerful?
It taps into our mirror neurons. When we see other people having a positive experience with a product, our brain simulates that feeling. It builds trust and makes us think, if they liked it, I probably will too. Authentic reviews and user-generated content are gold.
What about scarcity and urgency? Only 2 left. Sale ends tonight. Do those actually work on the brain?
They do, primarily through loss aversion. fMRI shows the thought of missing out activates pain centers in the brain. We're wired to avoid loss more than we seek gain. So, genuine scarcity or urgency creates a strong push to act now.
Genuine being the key word there, ethically speaking.
Absolutely. We'll get to ethics, but yes, these triggers work. And you need to test all this stuff, right? A/B testing.
For sure. Like that example you mentioned earlier, moving trust badges closer to the add to cart button.
Exactly. That store tested it and saw a conversion lift. It addressed anxiety right at the critical decision point. Testing reveals what actually works for your specific customers and products.
Okay, so the product page is this complex mix of visuals, words, price psychology, and social cues. Now, the final hurdle, the checkout. Why do so many people bail at this stage?
The checkout. This is where the brain's caution centers can really light up. People are about to part with money, so risk assessment goes into overdrive.
What makes it feel risky?
Uncertainty is a huge trigger. Unexpected costs popping up last minute, like high shipping fees, or a checkout process that suddenly looks different or asks for way too much information. Anything unfamiliar or demanding can trigger the amygdala, the brain's fear center, and poof, they're gone.
So job number 1 is reduce uncertainty and friction.
Precisely. Make it smooth, predictable, transparent. Use progress indicators, step 1 of 3, so people know where they are and feel in control. Minimize form fields relentlessly. Only ask for what you absolutely need.
Keep the design consistent with the rest of the site too.
Yes. A sudden change in look and feel can seem suspicious to the subconscious. Keep it familiar and reassuring.
What about the actual design of the form fields? Any brain-friendly tips there?
Eye tracking suggests top-aligned labels above the fields are often processed faster than labels to the left. Single-column layouts generally outperform multi-column ones because they provide a clear, linear path for the eye. Reduces cognitive load again.
And those dreaded shipping costs.
Big one. Unexpected shipping fees feel unfair. The brain hates unfairness. Be upfront about costs early on or offer free shipping if possible. It removes a major point of friction and negative emotion.
Okay, they've paid. What happens next in the brain? Buyer's remorse.
Sometimes, yeah. Post-purchase cognitive dissonance. Did I make the right choice? You can combat this with a great confirmation email. Reiterate the benefits of the product. Thank them, tell them clearly what happens next, reinforce the positive aspects of their decision.
Good idea. And upsells, where do they fit in best?
The sweet spot seems to be after the main purchase decision is made, but before final payment details are confirmed. The pain of paying is already active for the main item, so adding a smaller related item feels less psychologically costly at that point.
Interesting timing. So a seamless, transparent, reassuring checkout is key. Let's broaden out again emotions. We know they drive decisions, but how do we actively use them in Shopify marketing?
Well, as we said, emotions are fundamental. Neuroscience confirms it. Building emotional connections is incredibly powerful for conversion and loyalty.
Are there specific emotions that are most effective?
There are those 6 core ones: happiness, surprise, fear, disgust, anger, sadness. Generally, positive emotions like happiness and surprise are strongest for building brand affinity, but negative ones, used carefully, can work too, like FOMO, the fear of missing out.
And storytelling. Does that trigger specific emotions or brain chemistry?
It does. Good stories release oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It builds trust and empathy. That's why brand stories or customer testimonials told as stories can be so compelling. People connect with narratives.
What about the brain's reward system? Can we tap into that?
Definitely. That's all about dopamine. You can trigger dopamine release by building anticipation countdown timers for a launch, for example, offering little surprises like a free sample with an order. Even designing a really nice unboxing experience can create a dopamine hit and positive associations.
And loyalty programs. Do they work on a dopamine level too?
They tap into positive reinforcement loops. Earning points, reaching tiers, getting rewards. It all feels like achievement and triggers those reward pathways. Even small rewards can be effective if framed well.
And user-generated content, again, seeing others enjoy the product.
Mirror neurons strike again. Seeing someone else happy using your product makes the viewer's brain simulate that happiness. It's vicarious enjoyment, very persuasive.
It's clear emotions are key. But how does a regular Shopify store owner actually start implementing all this neuromarketing stuff? It sounds like it could get complicated or expensive.
That's a fair point, but it doesn't have to be. You don't need your own fMRI machine. There are budget-friendly ways to get started.
Like what?
Heat maps are a great start. Tools like Hotjar show you where people click and scroll. Session recordings let you watch anonymized user sessions to see where they get stuck or confused. These give you real behavioral insights.
So you can spot the friction points.
Exactly. There are also AI tools now that predict visual attention, where eyes are likely to focus on a page based on large data sets. Some even offer basic emotion analysis from video feedback, though that's maybe more advanced.
But even without those tools, you can apply the principles, right?
Absolutely. Just thinking about visual hierarchy, using clear calls to action, focusing on benefits in your copy, simplifying choices, ensuring your mobile experience is smooth. These are all based on neuromarketing principles and don't require special tools.
It's also about looking at your existing analytics differently.
Yes. Interpret your Google Analytics data through this lens: high bounce rate, maybe cognitive overload or poor visual appeal, high cart abandonment, maybe check out friction or unexpected costs triggering caution.
Are there Shopify apps that help with this?
Yeah, quite a few. Apps for social proof pop-ups leverage mirror neurons. Urgency apps add countdown timers for loss aversion. Personalization apps reduce cognitive load by showing more relevant content. They're designed to tap into these principles.
So start small, maybe. Focus on low effort, high impact changes first.
That's usually the best approach. Audit your site with these brain principles in mind. Form hypotheses. I think changing this image will improve engagement, and then A/B test them. Implement, measure, refine. It's an ongoing process.
Okay, but with all this power to influence the brain, we have to talk about ethics, right?
Yeah,
Where's the line between influencing and manipulating?
that is a crucial discussion. Neuromarketing gives us powerful tools, and with power comes responsibility. The line, I think, lies in intent and transparency.
How so?
Ethical influence is about understanding customer needs and preferences, including subconscious ones, to help them make better choices or have a smoother experience. It's about creating win-win situations.
And manipulation.
Manipulation is about exploiting cognitive biases or triggering anxieties purely for profit, often by deceiving or pressuring the customer. Think fake scarcity timers, misleading reviews, or dark patterns designed to trick people into buying things they don't want or need.
So transparency is key, especially with things like scarcity and social proof.
Absolutely. If you say only 3 left, it should be true. If reviews are curated to only show positive ones, that's misleading. Be honest. Also, privacy is huge. Even basic analytics tools collect data, so be transparent about what you collect and how you use it, get consent, and comply with regulations like GDPR.
It seems like the most effective strategies are often the most ethical ones anyway. Building genuine trust works better long term.
I completely agree. Tricking customers might yield short-term gains, but it damages trust and brand reputation. A good personal guideline is, would I be comfortable if this technique were used on me? If the answer is no, don't do it.
Good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Can we look at some real-world examples, case studies where Shopify stores successfully used these principles?
Sure. Let's run through a few quick ones. One skincare brand changed their primary color palette to soft blues and greens colors associated with trust and calm. They saw increased time on site and a noticeable conversion bump.
Simple color change, real results.
Another was an electronics store with tons of products. They felt overwhelming. They simplified their navigation, created clearer categories, and featured fewer products per page, reducing choice paralysis. Conversions went up, and surprisingly, average order value increased too.
Interesting. People bought more when shown less.
Possibly because they could actually make a decision more easily. Then there was a fashion store that noticed low mobile conversion. Eye tracking data suggested the add to cart button wasn't in an optimal spot for thumbs on mobile. They moved it, and mobile conversions improved significantly.
A small tweak based on physical interactions. Smart.
Exactly. A home goods store tackled high cart abandonment. They added trust badges prominently at checkout, simplified the form fields based on best practices, and added a progress indicator. Cart abandonment dropped by nearly 15%.
Addressing those checkout anxieties we talked about.
Precisely. And one more, a coffee subscription box. They shifted from feature-led descriptions to telling the story behind the beans and the farmers. They also added small, unexpected free samples in some boxes, triggering that dopamine surprise. Result, higher repeat purchase rate and more social media shares.
Storytelling and dopamine rewards. These examples really bring the principles to life. Shows it's not just theory.
Not at all. These are tangible results from applying brain science.
So looking ahead, what's next for neuromarketing in e-commerce? Where is this field going?
Well, I think we'll see technology becoming more accessible. Simpler EEG devices, maybe even remote eye tracking becoming more affordable for smaller businesses.
AI must play a role too.
Huge role. AI is getting incredibly good at analyzing behavioral data at scale, predicting which images will perform best, understanding the likely emotional response to different website copy, identifying friction points automatically.
What about personalization? Could it get even more?
Potentially, yes. We might see dynamic website adjustments based on inferred cognitive styles or emotional states, though the ethical considerations there are significant.
True. Any other trends?
Voice commerce is interesting. How does the sound of a brand voice affect the brain emotionally? Augmented reality, AR shopping, lets you place furniture in your room. How does the brain process that virtual interaction compared to just seeing a photo? Cross-cultural neuromarketing is growing too, realizing that visual cues and emotional triggers can vary across cultures. And definitely more focus on establishing clear ethical frameworks and regulations as the tech advances.
Fascinating stuff on the horizon. Okay, let's try to wrap this up. What are the absolute key takeaways for someone listening?
I'd say 1. Remember, most decisions are subconscious and emotional. 2. Visuals are processed incredibly fast. First impressions count massively. 3. The brain tries to conserve energy, reduce friction and cognitive load wherever possible. 4. Positive emotions and trust are powerful builders. 5. Test everything.
And the action plan.
Audit your store through this neuromarketing lens. Prioritize changes likely to have the biggest impact with the least effort first. Implement. Use A/B testing to validate, analyze the data, and refine. It's a cycle.
And always balance the science with your authentic brand voice, right?
Crucial. Don't become a robotic, optimized-to-death store. Use these insights to create genuinely better, more human-centric experiences that align with your brand.
Excellent. Well, this has been a really illuminating deep dive into using brain science to boost Shopify conversions. Hopefully, everyone listening feels equipped to start thinking about their store in a new way.
The goal is to create experiences that resonate better with how customers' minds actually work.
And remember, this deep dive from Conversion Bible was powered by Growth Suite. Growth Suite helps you run smart discount campaigns on your store. You can test it for free on the Shopify App Store. Just search for Growth Suite.
And maybe a final thought to leave people with. Think about the last thing you bought online. Try to unpack the subconscious factors. Was it the imagery, a feeling of trust, a sense of urgency? How did those elements influence you? And how can you use that insight on your own store?
Great question to ponder. Thanks again for joining us on Conversion Bible. I'll catch you on the next deep dive.